Heidi ho, my name is Preston Simpson, and this is going to be my UDL lesson review of the lesson shown to us in Table 8.1 and how it aligns with the UDL principles and guidelines. So to start out, we have our important UDL terms, obviously engagement, representation, action, and expression. Okay, so why the students are learning, what they're learning, and how they're learning. I'm going to be going step by step. Each guideline is going to have its own potential barrier throughout this PowerPoint, so the guidelines will be, their exact definition will be presented there. And then, of course, we have the Danielson framework, Domain 1, planning, preparation, classroom environment, instruction, and professional responsibilities. I will be coming back to this picture to talk about what I felt the lesson did as far as the Danielson framework, how it fell into the Danielson framework, and what it missed big on for sure. So, without further ado, let's go to guideline 1, providing options for perceptions. So I thought that a big potential barrier here for students was that they were being provided with little supports as far as information presentation. How are they going to get the information they need, such as what are the adaptations, the big idea, the background information, student misconceptions. I didn't see any documentation in this lesson of how that information was going to be presented or any accommodations that would be provided to students when presenting that information. So I thought that was a big miss right off the bat for guideline number 1 as far as the UDL principles. Guideline number 2, providing options for language and symbols. I did not feel that the information that was not being provided with multiple means of representation was in student-friendly language. Obviously, this is a lesson plan, but nonetheless, I think it would be a good idea to include student-friendly language in your lesson plans so it is presented that way to your students. I felt it was quite wordy, and there was really no breakdown of how the information was going to be presented to the students, and it didn't seem that it was very concrete in that way to me. I don't feel that students would have got a lot from the big idea, what are adaptations, and the background knowledge described in the lesson plan. Guideline number 3, providing options for comprehension. The barrier I saw here was there's no stimulus for students to recall background information or prepare them for the activity they will complete. So the background information is listed, and it has, again, a lot of wordy definitions for what they're going to be learning about, and it even has a text page number or textbook page number describing what the students should know, but I didn't see how that was going to be presented and how that transitioned into the activity itself. So I felt that was a huge disconnect as far as the UDL principles go. Guideline number 4, providing options for physical actions. So I felt that the biggest barrier here was students might not feel like their role in a group fits them. So the students are being assigned the roles. I feel like there needs to be more options in that decision-making process. Maybe giving students the opportunity to practice each role. So I saw that there was a section designated for having the students practice their roles, but why not have the students practice each role to see which one fits them best and which one they would like to do the most. I feel like that would be a good thing to have there, rather than assigning the students the roles just based off what you know about the student. Guideline number 5, providing options for expressive skills and communication. Again, with the student roles, I felt that this was going to constrict their ability to participate in the activity, thus lowering their performance in the group. So kind of tying off of guideline number 4 and the barrier I mentioned there, I feel like students who don't like their role would likely just not want to participate anymore and potentially become a distraction or not apply anything to the lab report. So I felt like that was a big miss in this lesson plan. Guideline number 6, providing options for executive functions. So the students are expected to follow scheduled tasks, but there's no variation. They don't have options. It's very rigid, right? They are given the roles. They are given the tasks. They have to do it in a certain amount of time. There's a clock watcher. I felt like that could lead to, again, a lot of students becoming bored or uninterested, unmotivated to do the report without constant teacher interaction with the students. So I feel like there needs to be more options for the students when conducting the lab report. They need to be able to have some fluidity with the lab report and kind of make it their own while still following the basic guidelines that the teacher wants them to get out of the lesson. Guideline number 7, providing options for recruiting interest. So I saw that there was not a whole lot of student autonomy when they are presenting their lab reports and which visual supports they can use and how they can use them. So specifically, I felt that choosing a spokesperson is kind of that just seems like a rigid form of, electing someone to go up there and speak, because it's always the person who doesn't want to speak that gets chosen, which sometimes is a good thing, but I think it needs to be a little more fluid. And as far as choosing what visual supports they can use, I feel like when the students are going up to present their lab report, they shouldn't have to use a bar graph or a specific form. I feel like they could kind of branch out and make the reports their own while still including hypotheses and including all their data. I feel like that it could be a much more group involved thing. Everybody speaks, not just one person speaks. It's a collaborative effort, so everybody is using their skills and using whatever visual supports they can to present to their classmates to teach them about their lab report. Guideline number 8, providing options for sustaining effort and persistence. So again, with the group work, I felt like that since the students were assigned roles and groups, they didn't get to choose. They didn't get to choose what role they wanted or they felt best in, and they didn't get the opportunity to self-assess whether that was a good fit for them or what have you. And I added a fun little picture here of our best friend Michael Scott from The Office. Nope, don't like that. Thought that was kind of cheeky. Anyway, moving forward, our last and final guideline, number 9, providing options for self-regulations. I don't feel like the students in this lesson are given enough options to motivate them to complete the activity to their full potential. I see this activity coming with a lot of student distraction, especially with the activity itself, where the students are feeding on the ground or on their desk, collecting their data. I feel like the students would just get carried away with that rather than staying with their roles, because again, there might be students who don't like the roles. So why not just harping on the fun and have fun with the feeding part of it? And furthermore, I think the lab report format was just a little rigid in as far as not allowing students to not allowing for all students to have a voice in the conversation or in the lab report. So moving back to the Danielson framework, just some key things that I saw as far as not aligning with the Danielson framework. Um, I felt like in domain number 1, planning and preparation, um, I felt like the design of student assessments was a little off for me. I feel like it was hard in the lesson for me to see where the students are being specifically assessed aside from just questions and discussions. I mean, throughout the activity, they aren't being assessed, and even in the big idea or the adaptations, there's no mention of the students being assessed on what they know, um, what they're going to know, what they're going to learn, and how they're going to learn it. So I thought that was a big miss in the planning part of this lesson. In the classroom environment, I felt like 2A, creating an environment of respect and rapport. Oh, sorry. I meant 2B, expectations for learning and achievement. I felt like that was a slight miss in this lesson. I mean, the end goal is the lab report, but again, the students are just discussing their findings really, and we're not discussing the content that the teacher wants them to know or get from the actual lesson. So I felt like that was a big miss in domain 2. In domain 3, instruction, I felt like in 3C, the grouping of students, and 3D, yep, the assessment criteria was a little off. Obviously, I talked extensively about the grouping of students in the UDL. I didn't feel like it was done effectively. I feel like there could have been a more structured way of doing that, or giving the students more autonomy. And then the assessment criteria, I didn't notice any assessment criteria in here other than the students will discuss as a class. So again, big miss there on this lesson as far as not only Danielson framework, but UDL framework as well. And then professional responsibilities. I felt like 4E, enhancement of content knowledge and pedagogical skill, was a little bit of a miss here, and I felt like 4C, information about individual students, was a little bit of a miss. I saw that there were a lot of assistive technology and a lot of adaptations for individual students. But again, with the grouping, I just don't see the students getting a lot of autonomy in deciding where they want to be in this lesson. And the content knowledge part of it was just a little off to me. It seemed like it was more based around the activity, which is great, but there was no preemptive assessment or information, or I didn't see anything in here that really stuck out to me as far as the students getting the information they absolutely need to get the most out of this lesson. So for me, after congruing all of this information, I feel like in the future, definitely looking at student autonomy, because student autonomy was never really a huge focal point for me when going through my teacher preparation process. It was always give the students a couple of options, not a multitude of options. And so far, going through the UDL process, I've learned that giving students the opportunity to kind of take the reins of their own learning can be something that is really impactful to how they progress in the classroom. And so I feel like student autonomy is one of those things that I would want to focus on probably the most. And then secondly, the just the preparation part and the assessment part of this lesson that I noticed. I feel like that was a big focal point. Definitely just really preparing your lesson out so you know exactly what is happening, how the students are getting their information, what options they have to get that information, and how are they going to be assessed? Is it going to be an ongoing assessment, a formal assessment? What's going to be the end product? How am I going to know that my students learn, or whether I need to come back to this and say, okay, let's review this because clearly there's a little bit of a disconnect. So those are the top 3 things I would probably focus on in the future: is student autonomy, preparation, and assessments. But that would conclude my presentation of this UDL lesson review. And I thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good day.